The prices of retro games are way up, and it's a pretty obvious answer. And I'm going to go through why it's so high on this episode of Game Freak. Stay tuned. Retro gaming. In the 80s and 90s, when these games and consoles were released, they were just new video games and consoles. The Atari 2600 was the first console I ever owned back in 1981 or 1982. But when Nintendo came out in 1986, it was a game changer. The technology was leaps and bounds ahead of the old 2600. The graphics were amazing for the time. We all thought that this system would be the answer to bringing our arcade favorites into our homes. Though Nintendo did an excellent job developing these games, they were definitely on a lower scale than the original arcade game, both visually and in the sound effect department. However, we didn't care. This system offered us so much more than we could have dreamed of. I remember purchasing my NES for $89.99. It was cheaper because I bought the package without the Zapper and Duck Hunt. Mine came with Super Mario Brothers. I gave two shits about Duck Hunt. Fast forward to modern times. Those classic consoles are now being held hostage and resold at ridiculous prices, all the way up to the PS2. But why is this? The answer is actually quite easy, but nobody wants to admit to it. Yes, collecting retro games and consoles have surged in the past 5 years, but the asking prices are far from being fair and reasonable. Blaming inflation is a fucking joke. When the Atari 2600 was the system in the early 80s, we were experiencing record inflation. Those games still were sold dirt cheap, and those games were still in production at that time. These now retro games and consoles are not. So is it supply and demand? Considering there is no supply on those old games and consoles anymore, supply is out the window. However, the demand is quite high. This doesn't mean the prices should be what they are. Just because something is old doesn't make it more valuable. These games and systems are still just plastic shells with an outdated chip in them. Just because WATA gives any of these games a high grading and slaps them in a plastic case doesn't mean they're actually worth more than their original price. It's unbelievable that some of these WATA graded games have auctioned off for millions. My Super Mario cartridge most likely plays just as well as their cased in plastic version. The kicker here, I can actually still fucking play mine. Isn't that why we buy these games? To play them, not to set them on the shelf and collect dust? Oh wow, you paid thousands or millions for the same game I paid $40 for. Who got ripped off here? These overvalued gradings from WATA caused a chain reaction. Now even the retro gaming stores somehow think an original $90 system should be resold for $300 to $500. Realistically, these systems have not increased in value. If anything, they have decreased. Let's face it, they're outdated. Just because more people are wanting them, which makes the demand higher, doesn't mean these cocksuckers should be raping us with these prices. I get it, these retro stores do have to make a profit to stay in business. It's understandable that they jack the prices up a little bit to do so, but selling a $100 system for $500 or $600, get out of here with that shit. I never wish businesses to go under, especially game stores, but I hope there is a retro crash. I hope people stop overpaying for all these games and the owners are stuck eating their losses. Better yet, maybe they'll be forced to drop the prices to something reasonable, which would make collecting retro games fun again. If you haven't connected the dots yet, The reason why the retro games are so high priced, it's greed. Plain and simple. Remember when E.T. on the Atari was deemed the worst game ever made? Now, since they uncovered piles of those cartridges that were buried in the ground from people throwing them away because the game sucked, all of a sudden, they are worth something. But newsflash, that game still fucking sucks. Games are only as valuable as your feelings towards them. Unfortunately, these resellers, they feel differently. They think that just because it was made 30 or 40 years ago, it's automatically worth hundreds, thousands, or millions. Don't give in to these greedy, dirty douche canoes. Don't give them your money. Luckily, there are other companies that haven't fallen to the greed bug, so you can still enjoy your retro games at an affordable price. Companies like Old School, they have a clone NES that plays all of your original NES cartridges. You can even plug in your original controllers to the console, and this console is under $40. You can find that on Amazon. Evercade has a home console for $130. It lets you play tons of licensed arcade classics that are on cartridges. Multiple games on each cartridge too, might I add. It also has a wide variety of other cartridges in its library that includes some of the games that retro stores sell at an asinine price. Evercade offers you their cartridges at only $20 to $25. There are plenty of options out there that can cure your retro fix. No use to giving to the greedy sellers. The people jacking these prices up are no better than the assholes that used bots to order out all of the PS5s at launch, only to try to resell them at a crazy ass price. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on this. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And thanks for watching and listening to me rant. Until next time, game on.